Good evening, Shana Tova, and welcome to, I think this is the greatest shul in the world. Never would we have imagined, and we're so glad to have so many of you joining us this evening and being a part of our service this evening. Many of you will have speaking parts, and if you do, we ask that you come over to the side. These will be the stairs that you will carefully go up and down. You'll be able to wait on the side, so come up a few pages before your speaking part. To begin our service, though, before we begin our service, we'd like to invite up Susan Coburn, and she has some words of welcome for all of us.
For those of you who know me, you're probably aware I'm just a little addicted to a game called pickleball. Vail had a very successful pickleball social several weeks ago, and if you weren't there this year, we hope to see you next year. The rabbi came by to watch, and as he gazed out at the almost 40 participants from Vail running around the courts and whooping it up with laughter, he turned to me and asked, "What is it about this sport that's so addicting?" There are several reasons why so many people love pickleball. The sport is a great physical exercise. It's also very mentally challenging. Pickleball is sort of like a clever game of chess played on concrete. You've got to carefully pick your shots and make sure each one leads to the next and the next and the next until eventually you're able to move in for that killer shot. There's also a very low barrier to entry to playing pickleball. A beginner paddle will set you back for only $35 or so, and for that reason, pickleball attracts participants from all walks of life. I've had a blast playing with CEOs, chefs, kids, electricians, teachers, and taxi drivers, just to name a few. I've even played with the first-chair cellist from the Philadelphia Orchestra when he snuck a couple of quick games in before his performance in Vail that night. But the real secret sauce behind the powerful attraction of pickleball, it goes back to that whooping up that the rabbi noticed. That sound of pure joy and connection among players that are having so much fun together on the court. I've been an athlete all my life and played a lot of sports, but I've never whooped it up in any other game like I do with my fellow pickleball players. A pickleball court is about half the size of a tennis court, so the 4 players in each match can't help but be physically close to each other. This proximity ensures there's a steady supply of banter, jokes, even a smattering of good-natured trash talk. But the playful repartee is always greatly outmatched by a stream of positive comments to each other. "Hey, great get," or "Whoa, fantastic winner." And when the game's over, the conversations move on to life itself. "Great to see you back on the court, Alan. How are you feeling?" "Hey, Sharon, how's that hamstring injury holding up?" Or "Kathy, how are those beautiful grandchildren of yours?" These are the words and actions of social connection and caring that you hear and feel so often on the pickleball court. It's just part of the sport's unique culture. And I don't know about you, but to me, it's exactly these whoop-it-up moments, along with the feeling of true caring in the company of others, that help me get through each day in this crazy, crazy world we live in. My best friend in the entire world, which sounds like an exaggeration, but she really was, passed away suddenly last December. If ever there were a mold for the quintessential woman of valor, it was Eve Goldberg. The world is just dimmer without her here. When Eve and I both lived in Connecticut, the two of us would hit the trails for a long walk every day, no matter the weather. We supported each other through both good and trying times, and we always maintained a sense of humor and hope. Often we laughed together so hard we'd lose our breath. It's like those freaking whoop-it-up moments that I have on the pickleball court now, but with Eve, it was ramped up even more. When Eve moved to the Berkshires and I moved to Colorado, we promised to keep in touch. But over time, the calls got fewer, the catch-ups less frequent. The last time I saw Eve was at my son's wedding a year and a half ago. We caught up as much as we could amidst the busy chaos of the wedding weekend. I gave her a big hug as she left to catch her plane back home to the Berkshires. Eve called me the following fall, a little more than 9 months later, on my birthday. I saw her name flash on the caller ID. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't lie to Eve. She knew me so well she'd see right through it. I hadn't told her I'd be at New York City at that time, a mere 2 hours away from her. I easily could have rented a car, swung up to the Berkshires to spend the weekend with my best friend. But I was in the city awaiting surgery. I was worried about catching COVID and having the operation postponed, and I counted on calling her back after I recovered and was back in Colorado. She'd understand. We'd have a good laugh about it later. Life intervened, and I delayed returning her call. Eve's daughter Isa got in touch with me late one evening 2 months after that birthday voicemail. She tearfully relayed that for some inexplicable reason, Eve was in sudden kidney failure, her body was shutting down, and she was medically evacuated from the Berkshires to Mount Sinai in the city. Eve fell into a coma for which she never emerged. I'd never have a chance to talk to her again. We'd never share another laugh. This beautiful, shining woman of valor died, surrounded by her shocked and grief-stricken family. She was 58. There will be no more treasured whoop-it-up moments with Eve, and I'm left with such regret. If only I hadn't been so selfish and I had picked up that phone call for my birthday. If only I'd made that effort to visit her in the Berkshires. If only. If only. So on this Erev Rosh Hashana, as we usher in the new year of 5782, it is my fervent hope that none of us waits for that whoop-it-up moment to come to us, but that we seek it out. Make that call, check your neighbor, share a smile with that acquaintance you seem to only run into at the grocery store, and perhaps even join me on the pickleball court. I guarantee you'll find yourself hopelessly addicted and whooping it up along with the rest of us after the very first game. On behalf of the Board of Directors of B'nai Vail, L'Shana Tova, may you and yours be inscribed in the Book of Life and sealed for a year of health, happiness, peace, and many, many moments of whoop-it-up joy, laughter, and connection.
Thank you. Our God and God of our fathers and mothers, as the evening casts its shadow over the earth, ushering this, the most solemn of days, we join with fellow Jews throughout the world in prayer and meditation. This night, hallowed by sacred memories, unites us with the generations of the past, recalling their piety and devotion. We stand before you humbled. Stripped of all pretense and revealed in our weaknesses, we seek your pardon, dear God, for often we've been faithless to our heritage, but their passion for learning and justice has burned deeply within us. Their teaching of mercy and peace will always be a part of who we are. We're going to now begin with the lighting of our candles, and Janet will be lighting for us this evening. And we join together in Shechianu, having reached this moment together, we join with the cantor.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyanu v'higianu l'zman hazeh.
Eternal God, as the new year begins, we have come together, each of us with special dreams and hopes. Each of us has personal worries and concerns. Each of us has a prayer that no one else can utter. And so we pray, if we are weary, give us strength. If we are discouraged, give us hope. If we have forgotten how to pray, remind us. If we have been careless of time, forgive us. With the glowing spirit of this holy night, warm us in the light of these candles as we begin a new year.
Thank you. Well, some have asked, are we going to fill all 5,000 seats? And I said, that was the point of coming here. We wanted to make sure everyone could spread out. So we are so glad that you're able to be here and be here safely and enjoy our services this evening. We'd like to invite up Marty, who's going to read for us now as the twilight falls.
As the twilight falls on the vanishing year, the B'nai Vail family unites with our fellow Jews around the world to proclaim a new year of hope. As we kindle these flames, may they open our eyes to the opportunities for good which await us in the year ahead, to work for love and justice, harmony and peace, and so to make the world bright with your presence.
Thank you. And as I mentioned, if you do have a reading, it'll help by coming up, and you can sit on the side, and we'll be ready for you at that moment. While we're waiting for Andy Kaufman to come up, we'll join together the middle of page 2 and join together as side 9. Continue the top of page 2.
Arriving in Jerusalem, the pilgrims lifted their eyes to the mountains and cried in unison, "From where does my help come?"
With a singular voice they answered, "My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth."
This Rosh Hashana, as we lift our eyes to the beauty of our mountains, we welcome the high holy days with its embrace of peace.
We ask your blessings upon all of us as we worship together, as we're grateful and appreciative for this moment of rest.
Your gift to us, called Rosh Hashanah, comes yearly to remind us to free ourselves from those things in life that hold us back.
Now is the time to set aside those petty arguments with friends, to say to family, "I'm sorry for things long forgotten."
May we never take for granted the beauty of our mountains. Take a breath and pause as we lift our eyes and know that as we begin this new year, we are blessed peace.
Thank you. The top of page 3, as we now rise, we'll join together with the cantor in our call to worship, the Baruch Hu.
Yeah.
be seated as we continue with a beautiful reading it's about Joshua ben Hananiah. He was also known as Rabbi Joshua, a leading Tana after the first century after the destruction of the temple. What was so interesting about him is his mother knew that he was as of Levite descent, that he was going to grow up to become someone famous. So she carried him in his cradle to the synagogue so his ears might be accustomed to the sounds of the words of Torah. Now we can hear his story on the middle of page 3.
A story is told in the Talmud of Rabbi Joshua. He was walking on the road on his way to town. He met a boy at the crossroads and asked him the way to town. The boy, pointing his finger to the right, answered, "This road is near and far." He turned to the left, pointed his finger, and said, "This road is far and near." Rabbi Joshua took the road to the right, thinking it was shorter, but found the way blocked by fruit gardens surrounded with fences. He returned and found the boy who had directed him. "Why did you mislead me?" he demonstrated. "You did not take heed of my directions," retorted the boy. "Did I not say that the road to the right is near and far? It is the nearer road, but because the garden has barriers, it is the further. The other road, although it is farther, is nearer because it is clear and unobstructed." We are seeking too many shortcuts. We seek shortcuts in education, in religion, in human relations, in every avenue of life. There are no shortcuts to honesty, decency, benevolence, thoughtfulness, and compassion.
Thank you. We join together at the middle of page 3 with the cantor and the chanting of the Shema.
Yisrael, Adonai
In the middle of page 4, the prayer of Micha Mocha is also known as the Song of the Sea, Shirat Hayam, and it's a poem that was written, it appears in the book of Exodus. The Song of the Sea was sung as the Israelites were crossing the sea in safety, and then they celebrate their destruction of the Egyptian army, and they're now in freedom. Middle of page 4 as we join with the cantor.
Habaylim Adonai, mi kamocha ne'etar b'kodesh, norah tehilot osei felet, baruchu etecha, ra'u banecha, ukei hayom lifnei Moshe, ze'ili anu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch le'olam ad.
The Hashkivenu prayer is part of a set of rabbinic teachings, and it takes place in between the Baruch Hu and then the Shema. The prayer envisions God as a guide and a shelter during a night ahead, and praises God for watching over all of us, delivering us and being merciful. The top of page 5, we invite Harlan Hodis and Sandy, and they're going to read for us responsively. All of you are coming. Please. Page 5 at the top of the page will continue responsively.
On this Rosh Hashana evening, we seek peace and comfort. Shield us from the hatred and destruction
that plagues so many corners of our world and console those in need.
May God
Provide peace and comfort in the refuge of his wings. Protect us from concerns and distress that keep us from thinking clearly.
May we live each day with honesty, grace, and integrity.
So we may lie down each night free from worry and angst, and awake each morning with renewed life.
Grant us good counsel so we'll make each day worthy of your promises. Guard our going forth and our coming in. Bless us with life and peace. May we always feel protected in the shadow of your wings. For blessed are you, eternal God, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all people, and over Jerusalem. Amen. The Hashkivenu at the bottom of page 5 as we join with the cantor.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, Nehamidenu Malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, Nehamidenu Malkeinu lechaim. Ushmor tziteinu, avoinu, lechaim ushalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, Ne'amidenu Malkeinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, Ne'amidenu Malkeinu lechaim.
Well, this past year we've experienced living with the unknown, and the Hashkivenu prayer was asking God for protection against the unknown. We wrote that worry has been defined as the act of borrowing trouble from the future for present-day consumption, but courage has been defined as the act of borrowing hope from from the future for the present day consumption. That's our Hashkivenu prayer, that really for all of us we have to be borrowing hope for the future. We'll now turn to page 6. In the middle of the page, we rise for the Reader's Kaddish.
Yitkadash, Shmei Rabbah, Be'almat Divrach Eruteh, Ve'amlich Malchuteh, Bechayechoin, U'yomechoin, U'bechaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, U'vizemon Kariv, Ve'imeru, Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah mevarach, Le'alam u'lalmei alamaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar v'yitroba v'yitnaseh, V'yitador v'yitaler v'yitalal, Shemei dekudsha b'richu. Leila uleila min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata da'amirun v'yalma v'imru.
You may be seated. Every day, wrongs are done between husband and wife, parent and child, brother and sister, between races, creeds, and nations. Harsh words are spoken, uncharitable judgments are made, and grievances are nursed. Every day, in the absence of forgiveness, bitterness grows deeper. Help us, O God, to break out of this vicious circle which only leads to misery, the misery of those with whom we are in conflict and our own. Make us see that right is rarely only on one side, even though it be our own. Teach us to be self-critical, to restrain our anger, to swallow our pride, to moderate our demands, to make concessions, and to be generous to both, and to forgive and to accept forgiveness. Well, the Birkat HaGomel prayer expresses our gratitude for the miracle of healing and the full restoration of one's health, to family and friends, and indeed, to restoration of life itself. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hagomel l'chayavim tovot sheg gimalani kol tov. May God, who has bestowed kindness upon us, continue to bestow every goodness upon each of us and restore our health. There are those in our community who are in need of healing of body, mind, or spirit. If you have a loved one who's in need of healing, in just a moment, take a moment to think about them as we continue with Misha Baruch, our prayer for healing, in the middle of page 7.
May the source of strength
at the new moon, at the full moon, for our feast days sound the shofar, for that is the law of Israel, the way of the God of Jacob, as the cantor continues now in the bottom of page 7.
תיקעו בחודש שופר, וקיש ליום חגנו, כי חוק לישראל הוא, משפט אלוהי יעקב, משפט אלוהי יעקב.
Let there be peace and grant goodness, blessing and grace, constancy and compassion to all of us and to Israel, to your people. We'll join together B'Sefer Chaim.
בספר חיים ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה, נזכר ונקטים לפניך, אנחנו בכל עמך בית ישראל, לחיים טובים, לחיים טובים ולשלום. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
Well, in the Middle Ages, Maimonides conceived of an 8-level hierarchy of tzedakah, where the highest form is given as a gift, a loan, or partnership that would then result in the recipient becoming self-sufficient instead of living upon others. In his view, the second highest form of tzedakah is to give donations anonymously, also to an unknown recipient. If you'll take a moment in the middle of page 8, the reason we've included this, and it's something for you to read on your own, because Howard Marcus, this prayer book was dedicated to him. And what a generous individual he was. Unfortunately, he passed away before being able to come to services. But how do we get this book put together? But Mickey says, let's talk to the Mahjong group. And the whole Mahjong group that, of course, plays together said, what better tribute could we have to a better individual that really follows the 8 degrees of charity? As we turn to page 9, these simple few words taken from Psalm 51, Adonai Svatai. It's a beautiful prayer that we say spontaneously instead of speaking to prayer. It feels like the prayer is speaking to us, so take a moment and allow God's voice to be heard. Live this moment, especially on Erev Rosh Hashana. Live this moment of silence and let it carry you through the rest of the week. We join with the cantor, page 9.
And as you feel so moved, rise whenever it feels like it's time. Adonai Svatai Tivta, Adonai Svatai Tivta, Adonai Svatai Tivta, V'yagid tehilatecha, oh
We continue silently, pages 9 through 19. You may be seated when you've completed the Amida. May the maker of peace above make peace for us, for all Israel, and all who dwell on earth. The cantor continues, and please join with her. Page 19 at the bottom of the page. A little boy used to come home from school each day, and he would disappear hiking up a path up on the mountain behind his house. And after watching him ascend the mountain, his father asked him, he said, "Son, where do you go every day? Who is it that you're meeting on the mountain?" Well, the boy said, "I climb the mountain to talk to God." And the father gently explained to the boy, "Son, don't you know that God is everywhere? God is the same on the mountain, just as God is right here in our home." "Well, that's true," said the boy. "God is the same on the mountain as he is right here at home, but I'm not the same. When I'm on the mountain, I feel different." Well, one of the greatest challenges of our time, a challenge since the days of the first temple of Jerusalem, 2,000 years ago, it's not how to build a house of worship, but how to make God's presence dwell among us. And even Moses had struggled for all of his years with that same problem. What challenges us today, even back in 1953, Rabbi Avraham Joshua Heschel challenged the Rabbinical Assembly and the conservative movement with the very same question. Professor Heschel was invited to deliver a talk at the annual convention, and his talk was entitled "The Spirit of Prayer." His challenge, amazingly, still resonates today as it did a generation ago. He began by saying, "Our services are conducted with pomp and with precision, and the delivery of the liturgy is smooth. Everything is present at our services, decorum, voice, ceremony. Well, one thing is missing: life. One knows in advance what will ensue. There's no surprises in our worship." Obviously hadn't been here. "There's no surprises in our worship. There's no adventures of the soul. There's no sudden burst of devotion. Nothing is going to happen at the soul of our services. The fire has gone out." Well, that prophecy was made 68 years ago. And where is Judaism in America today? Well, one of my professors very early on in rabbinical school, I remember him teaching me a lesson, and it stayed with me all of those years. He said, "The very congregating of Jews, the very gathering of Jews, like we have tonight, is more important than the words that you will ever speak as their rabbi." Now, I've witnessed for more than 40 years as a rabbi that something miraculous happens. Something miraculous happens when people come together seeking the presence of God. Whether it be a service on the top of Vail Mountain, the flight deck of an aircraft carrier, or as I did a tent in the Rocky Desert, or here, right here in the Gerald Ford Amphitheater. A spirit is created among us that's unlike anything I think we've ever felt before. You see, the purpose of reading the words in our prayer book is not to meet the needs of God, but the purpose of reading the words in our prayer book is to join in song and prayer with all of you, our fellow worshipers, to find God in an exhilarating and a shared experience. So when you and I gather in the crisp air of the outdoors to welcome the new year, it's my hope that we should leave this service tonight feeling a little differently about ourselves, feeling differently about the world for having gone through this moment called Rosh Hashana. Well, in the heart of the Utzot, the Museum of the Diaspora, now on display in one overlooked little corner of the museum is a sculpture, and the sculpture is called the Minyan. It's a scene of Jews, young and old, gathering in prayer. But the idea behind it came from Abba Kovner. He's a famed Lithuanian freedom fighter. He turned Israeli artist and poet. And though Kovner survived the Vilna ghetto, the uprising, many of his family and his neighbors, they all were perished in the Holocaust. Understandably, when Kovner arrived in Israel, he was alienated from God, wanting nothing to do with organized religion. Well, one day while he was walking through Jerusalem, an old bearded man tugged on his sleeve, and he invited him to join a minyan. Well, he invited Kovner to be the 10th. For the first time, Kovner explained, "I felt counted. In a strange way, I belonged. I was needed in the Jewish community." Now, the oddity of his minion sculpture, Kovner explains that it only has 9 figures, not the 10 participants as prescribed by Jewish law. The absence of the 10th is meant to remind you that each of you are needed to complete the minion. That community cannot go on without your help. Well, the idea of community has changed. It's evolved over the years, and we have Jews who are observant, less observant, Orthodox, conservative, Reform, all of us seeking God on this, the eve of the new year. It's so nice when our Jewish lives are so simple and straightforward, but the real world, our world, as this new year begins, we can see is neither. It's really quite messy, it's complicated, and we would love to know what God asks of us. Where is God? But more often than not, it takes a lifetime of searching. Well, there was a couple in the shtetl that had 2 little ill-behaved boys, not quite bar mitzvah age. They were always getting themselves into trouble, and their parents knew that if any mischief occurred in their village, their sons were going to get the blame. Well, the boy's mother heard that the Rebbe, he had been successful in disciplining children. So she asked if he would speak with her boys, and he agreed, but he asked to see them individually. So the mother sent her 8-year-old first in the morning, and with the older boy to see the Rebbe in the afternoon. The Rebbe was this large, imposing man with a great beard and a deep, booming voice. And he sat the young boy down and he asked him sternly, "Do you know where is God?" Well, the boy's mouth dropped open. He made no response, just sitting there with his eyes open. And the Rebbe repeated the question again. He turned to him and he said, "Where is God?" Again, the boy made no attempt to answer. So the Rebbe raised his voice to this rumbling growl, shook his finger in the boy's face and bellowed, "Where is God?" Well, that did it. The boy screamed and bolted out of the room, ran directly down the dirt road, and dove under his bed. When his older brother found him hiding under there, he says, "What happened?" And the younger brother, gasping for breath, replied, "You won't believe this. We are in big trouble this time. God is missing, and they think we did it." Well, I remember when teaching an ethics class at the Naval Academy, we often quoted the words of Immanuel Kant. He's an 18th century German philosopher who believed, "2 things have always held me in awe, the starry heaven above me and the moral law within me." Well, a rabbi in the Talmud was once asked as well, "Where is God?" And the rabbi answered, "Where there is life. Where there is life in the body, our entire body, our mind, our heart, our hands, our feet, every part of us is full of life." And the rabbi continued, "What life is to the body, God is to the world. We don't need to see God, but we live by God's presence." Well, you remember in Sunday school when we were told God is everywhere. There was a cynical French astronomer who once bragged to J.W. Hawley, and he said, "I have swept the universe with my telescope, and I find no God." To this, Hawley simply replied, "That's as unreasonable as for me to say, I have taken my violin apart, and I have examined every piece, and I find no music." You know, most of the time, something has to happen in our lives in order to feel God's presence. Well, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, one of our most beloved teachers of the 18th century Eastern European Jewry, he was known as the defense attorney for the Jewish people because he would always intercede on the behalf before God. Well, one of the oldest and well-known tales of Reb Levi Yitzchak is a story about a young Jewish boy. He was orphaned as a child and adopted into a warm-hearted Gentile family. The boy knew himself to be Jewish, although he didn't know exactly what that meant. He lived a simple life as a shepherd, going out each day with his flock, playing his flute all along. Well, one autumn day, while sitting at the side of the road, he noticed person after person after person traveling to this nearby city of Berdichev. Well, one by one they passed until the boy's curiosity got the best of him until he called out to the traveler, "So where are you going?" "We're on our way to Berdichev to spend the high holy days with the great tzaddik, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev." "High holidays?" The boy asked, "What are they?" Well, the men just laughed and said, "Silly boy, the Jewish New Year and Yom Kippur, while the whole world is being judged, you should not be here with sheep. You belong in the synagogue." Well, the words struck a chord in the boy, not knowing what to do, but knowing that he had to do something. Not familiar with the high holidays, the boy took his flute and followed the crowd into the synagogue. Well, never in his life had he experienced such a thing. The sound of the chazan's voice, the townfolk engaged in prayer. And at that moment, the boy knew more than anything else what he did not know. He couldn't read Hebrew. He couldn't recite a single prayer. More than anything in the world, he wanted to join in, but he lacked the understanding to do so, and nobody reached out to help him. Now, all through Rosh Hashanah, then Kol Nidre, then Yom Kippur, well, he sat there seeking a way into this holy community. The time for Nila arrived. It was the end of Yom Kippur. The tension in the room had mounted, and he has understood the sanctity of the vanishing hour. One by one, the worshipers gathered at the Holy Ark in silence, with tears in their eyes, unable to contain himself in prayer any longer. The boy took out his flute and began a joyous flurry of searing notes. All the worshipers froze and stared. How dare this child create such an outburst and desecrate our Sabbath day? With every darting eye turned against the boy, Reb Levi Yitzchak calmly walked off the bima toward the terrified child, and he embraced him. "This boy," announced the Rebbe, "has saved us all. All day long, I saw that our prayers had not ascended to heaven with the gates of Nila closing. Our names were not yet inscribed into the book of life. Only by the way this boy's pure heart and the pure prayer of his flute are more true than any prayer that we've offered any of us today. Have the gates of heaven opened, so we now owe this boy our gratitude. May each one of us in this sacred hour learn to pray as he does." Well, on this eve of Rosh Hashanah, as God opened before us the book of life, we're reminded that Rosh Hashanah is a time of hope. Hope for a better year and certainly for a better future. Rosh Hashanah has reminded us that we have the capacity for tshuva. We have that capacity to change. We need not be bound by our past mistakes or our past sins. We can learn from them and grow and change. These acts will lengthen our days. Eternal God, we who seek you on this eve of the new year, Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva, help us to return to you and we shall return. Chadesh Yamenu Kekedem, renew our lives as when we were young. May God grant that our lives will help us grow closer together as a community, and that we'll climb that mountain in search of our God. And we will invite the 10th to join our minyan. And in this sacred hour, let us learn to pray, as did the young shepherd, for a year of health and life. Amen. We're now going to return to our prayer books. On page 20, and we invite up Mark and Rhonda Strauss, we rise and join with the cantor, the singing of Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu
Continue silently on page 20.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu masil.
We remain standing as we'll leave the ark open for just a moment. Page 21, and we'll join together with the cantor, Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gdula le'otzer bereshit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, V'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, v'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, lemelech al kol ha'aretz, Bayom hahu, Yeh Adonai echad, U'shemo echad.
We remain standing at the bottom of page 21.
The 19th century American essayist and poet Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote that if the sunset occurred once every 10 years, we would be so awed by it, it would appear to be a miracle. But since it happens every day, we scant pay attention to it. The soul of each of us is geared to see miracles in the daily occurrences of nature. With open eyes and hearts, we can witness the sunrise and the sunset, the growth of fruit and flowers, the babble of brooks, and the power of the seas. Let us consider and appreciate the daily miracles and give thanks for God's creations.
Thank you. Thank you. At this moment, in memory of our loved ones who are no longer with us, we join hands in love and remembrance because a link has been broken. A link has been broken in the chain that bound us together, yet strong bonds of home and love hold us one to another. Though our loved ones are beyond our sight, we do not despair, for we'll always be comforted by their precious memories. The mourner's Kaddish can be found in our prayer books on page 22. And those who wish may join with us as we say, Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'galav izman karivim ramein. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam omeo maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damiran b'alma v'imramein. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'mramein. Oseh Shalom B'mramav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'mramein. May be seated. We invite up Phil Brodsky, and he's going to read for us about the year gone by.
The year gone by has faded with the sunset as we move always forward in life. This evening, which borders on past and future, summons us to this sanctuary. It summons us to account for the gift of life. This sacred evening, we join as a congregation with repentance on our tongue, with resolve in our heart that our atonement be reflected in our deeds. We seek forgiveness from ourselves, from others, and from God. We seek wholeness and holiness with God as we enter a new year. Help us, God, to realize the truth that we are only as holy as we allow ourselves to be.
Thank you. As the cantor continues, the bottom of page 23, Yehi Ratzon.
Yehi Ratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu Eloi Avoteinu Sheit Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova Umetuka Shana Tova Yehi Ratzon Milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu Sheit Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova Umetuka Shana Tova.
Well, again, thank you all for joining us this evening, and especially to our cantor for your beautiful voice and music. Having come out of difficult surgery 2 weeks ago, but here with us, and it's no big deal because every other Rosh Hashanah you've delivered a baby. So,
Yeah, there's always some surgery.
right, so this was
or
nothing.
something.
This was nothing to expect. And for Jeannie, I know that the logistics of all of this was truly amazing of how to put this together. And as you enter, it was, I'm sure, as smooth as possible for all of you. And as you leave, if you see some of the police that we have hired and have volunteered, please thank them for keeping us safe while we're here. But especially a thanks to Joyce and Paul Krasnow, where it was last March when we knew that COVID was not really becoming better and possibly could be as it is today. He said to me, go book the amphitheater and we'll take care of it. And I thought, okay, that's like talking about Red Rocks or the Hollywood Bowl. But we did. We talked to them, and we were able to get this for all 4 services. And it really wouldn't have come about without Joyce and Paul helping us make all of this possible for all of you. So we're so grateful for that. Our Machzorim, again, I think Howard was with us. This was a very special way. It's a new prayer book based on last year's PDF, but it's made especially for all of us and in memory of Howard Marcus. So we're so grateful to all of you who contributed toward his memory to make that possible. And Patrick, for the sound and streaming, we don't know how many people out there who are watching, but I know we were contacted that COVID had gotten much worse in Hawaii. So they contacted us from Pearl Harbor and said, can we have the sailors and the soldiers, airmen, Marines, they're all streaming in on our service in Vail. So we welcome them to our service, and so many others that are watching with us, especially in San Diego with Joan is watching and all of her friends at Seacrest, and so many more. So we're so grateful we can do both from that. We also, after doing 3 services or whatever we recorded throughout all of COVID, and so many
68
services. We got really good at putting up sets. We ran out of things in my living room next to my fireplace, but we worked on it, and it wasn't me. It was Janet who put together all these sets for us. And you'll notice what she's also done down below, that 9/11 is the 20th anniversary of such a horrible time in our history. So if you do, take a moment, because it has the symbols on the table that I'll be talking about again tomorrow and explaining them in greater detail. But please take a look and see what she has put together for all of us. The flowers just kept coming in, and we said, Karen just did a magnificent job in putting these flowers. I said, this is a pretty big bima. So we've never had to be on something quite as large as this, but it's beautiful. And the way this was all set up, and so many volunteers that came to help us do this and put it together. Well, our services tomorrow will be taking place at 9:30. We'd like to say the gates open at 8:30, and we do have reserved seats that when you come in and you sit down, it's reserved. So there's plenty of seats for everyone here or back on the lawn. And following that, we will be having our Tashlich service. I'll get better details. It's somewhere down the creek, a little bit further down. And that's sponsored by Alice Leeds in memory of her father, Jack.
You just follow the Jews to the water.
Right. Exactly. And we have some flyers in the back that have the tributes and the thank yous to so many of you that helped make this possible through your donations to make such a beautiful service happen. And when you're done, Jeannie did say to me, please don't just leave your books on the seats. Take it back, and they'll collect all the books, and we'll have them again for tomorrow.
Do they have a second cover?
No, this is it, so we'll just turn to the next page. You don't even have to twist them back. You just put them back closed as they were, and we'll be ready for tomorrow's service. And thank you to the many ushers and David for helping up and down the stairs. We thank you and greatly appreciate. Paul, thank you. Come on over.
And tomorrow morning, if you didn't have a chance this evening, Luke
I have a reading for
Geller
you.
has some beautiful cards that he designed all of the art for that's for his
No, this.
mitzvah project. So make sure you stop by
Just a
his
bit.
table on the way in to see what he's been working on for his mitzvah project.
Well, we return to our prayer books now. Hashana, it's an amazing song. We're going to sing that, and then Paul's going to close the service for us with a prayer. He doesn't know that yet. But Hashana means next year. And what's interesting about this song, it was written by Ehud Manor. It was composed by Nurit Hirsch. When he asked Hirsch to compose the song, he didn't tell her that it was written about his younger brother, Yehuda Vilner, who was killed in the battle in 1968. Well, not knowing this, she created this upbeat song of Hashana to the lyrics that I think has become a classic of what we sing on Rosh Hashanah. So it's actually a little bit of a song of sadness, but it's definitely, as we're always thinking about tonight, a song of hope. Hope for the next year, the new year would be better. So we'll join with the cantor, page 24.
Bashana habaa nishema hamirpeset benizpor ziporim noredot yaladim bachufsha yishachachut tofeset ben habayit uven hasadot otirei kama tov yeh bashana bashana habaa
Paul has never been one for a loss for words, and he has a few words, very brief words to say before opening with his reading.
Well, our family, my niece and Debbie and Sandy and Mitchell are in Florida watching, and I want to say Shana Tova. What a wonderful opportunity. I can say it. I can't see them, but they can see me. And this is so beautiful. Don't you think it's beautiful? Come on, tell them. I wish that you could go and sit over there and see what this looks like.
Well, let's go. You take over. You can finish.
I'll finish up. Why not? On the eve of the new year, we have come together to welcome the new year, to celebrate its promise, to ponder its responsibilities. Let us give thanks for the new opportunities it brings us. Let us preserve joyous and worthy memories, and let us carry forward with our most noble hopes. Let us be worthy of our ancient heritage and loyal to its teachings, yet aware of the new challenges still before us. Let us greet the new year with renewed hope and strength, responding to the mystery and wonders of life. As we pray for a year of good health and fulfillment, may the thoughts we think and the deeds we performed help make this a truly Shana Tova.
Thank you. And we join together.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, b'tei avon.
Shana Tova, and thank you for joining us.
L'shana tova tikatevun, l'shana tova tikatevun, l'shana